Assalamu alaikum, dear learners, and welcome to this program on active and passive voice. I believe this is a difficult topic for many of you, and many of you lose marks in examination because you don't know the rules of active and passive voice in English. And I believe after this class, you will be able to write the sentences correctly. So ready? Great. Let's start. Right. A verb is in the active voice when its form shows that the person or thing denoted by the subject does something. In other words, when the person or thing in the subject slot is a doer of an action, the verb is in the active voice. For example, Asad beats Sajid. The man buys a book. And this active voice is called active voice because a person denoted by the subject acts. On the other hand, a verb is in the passive voice when its form shows that something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject. The passive voice is called passive voice because a person or thing denoted by the subject is not active but passive and suffers or receives some action. For example, Sajid is beaten by Asad. A book is bought by the man. When the verb is changed from the active voice to the passive voice, the object in the active voice becomes the subject in the passive voice and subject becomes the object. For example, the man, subject, chases the dog, that is object. Now see the passive voice. The dog becomes subject, is chased by the man, it becomes object. Here you should keep an important point in your mind. We cannot change a verb into a passive voice if it does not have an object. In other words, the verb of a sentence must contain an object for being able to give a passive construction. Such a verb is called a transitive verb, and the verb that does not need an object is called an intransitive verb. Here are 3 examples for each class. First, transitive verbs. The boy ate an apple. This means ate is a transitive verb because if you say the boy ate, message will not be clear. Second example, the butcher is slaughtering a cow. Here slaughtering is a transitive verb because it needs some object, what. He is slaughtering cow, hen, what. Third sentence, the child is drinking juice. Now some examples of intransitive verbs. Sentence number 1, the bird is flying. Some of you might say, what if I say the bird is flying in the air? In the air is object? No. In the air is the adverb. So don't confuse these things. Second example, Faisal is sleeping. Sleeping does not need any object. Third example is the man is running. Because running does not need any object here. Now the question is, why do we use active voice or passive voice? Fine. The active voice is used when the agent, that is the doer of the action, is to be made prominent. For example, my father gave me this gift. Here I want to say that my father is more important than the gift. Hassan made this beautiful scenery and Quaid-e-Azam founded Pakistan. In this sentence, my focus, my concern is Quaid-e-Azam, not Pakistan. Allama Iqbal wrote beautiful poems in Urdu and Persian. I hope you're getting the idea. When we think the person is more important, then we bring him to the beginning. On the other hand, the passive form is used when the person or thing acted upon is to be made prominent. For example, Pakistan was founded by Quaid-e-Azam. Shikwa was written by Allama Iqbal. My house was constructed 25 years ago. The enemy was attacked from all sides. We generally use a passive form when the doer of an action is not clear in the active form. For example, my wallet has been stolen. This sentence means someone has stolen my wallet and I'm not quite sure who the person is. Or in other words, I don't want to blame anybody. One more interesting example, the dais has been removed from the classroom. This means a speaker is not sure who has removed the dais from the classroom. And by the way, you should not pronounce the word dice, that is days. One more example, the plane has been hijacked. No one knows who the hijackers are. And we often use a passive form when the doer of an action in the active form is understood. For example, the thief has been arrested. Can you guess who arrested him? It is police, definitely. One more example, the house has been painted nicely. It is understood that it is the painters who have painted the house. It is understood that it is the painters who have painted the house. We generally use a passive form when the doer of an action in the active form is not important to mention. For example, Pakistan was founded in 1947. Here we are, for example, talking about Pakistan, not its founder. So here Pakistan is important than the person who founded it, because the date 1947 is important here, not the person who founded the country. One more example, Minar-e-Pakistan was constructed in Lahore. In this sentence, the place where the Minar was constructed is more important. One more example, France was defeated badly. In this sentence, it is more important to mention how France was defeated. We often prefer to use passive structures when we want to talk about an action but are not interested in saying who or what does it or who did it. Passives without agents are common in academic and scientific writing for this reason. For example, this missile is fired from this range. One more example, those pyramids were built around 400 AD. And too many books have been written on dengue fever. We use passive form when it is not possible to construct an active form. For example, Salman was born in 1970. In some languages, interestingly, like Urdu, it is quite possible to say the same thing in the active form. For example, Salman 1970 में पैदा हुआ. Due to different mother tongue rules, foreign learners of a language commit such types of mistakes, and that is why some Pakistani learners of English may say Salman born in 1970, because what they do, they simply convert Urdu sentence into English. And in Urdu it is active, but in English it must be passive. And sometimes it is not possible to use a passive form. In such situations, the active form is used. For example, the above sentence Salman 1970 में पैदा हुआ cannot be said in the passive form in Urdu language. You may find such sentences in English too. Sometimes passive form is used due to formality. The use of an active form in such situations may sound rude. For example, it is requested that I may please be granted 1 week leave. Its active form would be, you are requested to grant me a 1 week leave, or it is requested that you please grant me 1 week leave. That is why we prefer to use the passive voice, the passive structure in applications and letters. There are a few transitive verbs which, even in an active form, are sometimes used in passive sense. For example, these mangoes taste sour. This means when you eat these mangoes, you feel the sour taste. These mangoes taste sour, and please don't pronounce sour, that is wrong. It is sour. These flowers smell sweet. The poem reads well. My shoes are wearing out. And last sentence, suddenly the door opened. When verbs that take both a direct and an indirect object in the active voice are changed into the passive voice, either object may become the subject of the passive verb, while the other is retained and it is used after the passive form. For example, the mother will give a gift to Mahnur. It has got two possibilities in the passive voice. Number one, Mahnur will be given a gift by her mother, or a gift will be given to Mahnur by her mother. Second example, Mohsin teaches us grammar. It too has got two possibilities. We are taught grammar by Mohsin, or grammar is taught to us by Mohsin. Now the question is how to use passive voice. The structure of a passive voice totally depends on the structure of its passive form. This means the passive form follows the tense of the active form. For example, if the active form takes present perfect tense, passive will take the same tense. For example, the little boy has broken the toy. Its passive form is the toy has been broken by the little boy. Remember that a passive construction always takes the third form of the verb. It's very important. That is why you should learn the verbs well, otherwise you may commit a mistake though the structure of your sentence may be perfect. For example, many foreign learners of English may say, "The ball was catched by me." Can you guess what is wrong here? The ball was catched by me. And I hope you can guess easily there's something wrong with the verb catch. It should be caught. Second example, the door was hit hard. Again, problem with the verb. The bowler swung the ball amazingly, and so on. Swang. It should be swing, swung, swung. But people model it on drink, drank, drunk. This is wrong. Since the passive form depends on the active form, you must be careful in converting it. What I want to say is, if the active form is in the present tense, its passive form must also be in the present tense. Similarly, if the active form is in the future tense, its passive form will be in the same tense, and so on. For example, Shahzad has taken a lot of exercise today. That is, present perfect tense. And the passive form is, a lot of exercise has been taken by Shahzad today. Second example, my friend always organizes such programs. Present simple tense. Passive voice, such programs are always organized by my friend. Third example, the madman chased the naughty boys. It is simple past tense. And how to change into passive voice? The naughty boys were chased by the madman. Now future tense. The postman will deliver the parcel today. It will change into as, the parcel will be delivered by the postman today. As I have already said, the passive form heavily depends on the structure of the active form. You should know how to deal with the active forms that are in progressive form. For example, the kids are plucking flowers. When you change into passive form, you have to keep two things in mind. Number one, there must be something for ing, and then the verb will change in third form. And how we can do this? Flowers are being plucked by the kids. Second example, the young seagull was drinking water. Water was being drunk by the young seagull. My mother will be cooking tasty food this evening. Tasty food will be being cooked by my mother this evening. But I must tell you, this future continuous tense in the passive form is not usual. Rather, I would say it is quite unusual. Now coming to the modals. These modals should not change their form while changing them from the active voice to the passive voice. And I believe these modals should, could, may, might. They don't change their form simply because they never take different form. In such sentences too, it is a main verb that changes into the third form. For example, you should help this patient. And how to change into passive voice? As I've told you, should will not go into the past tense because it does not have any past tense. Rather, will change the main verb help into the past form. This patient should be helped by you. One more example. The police must chase a thief. And in this sentence, must is a modal and chase is a main verb. And how to change in passive voice? I hope you can do it, but I'll do it for you. The thief must be chased by the police. One more example. Fatima could sew a frock for you. Sew, S-E-W. It should be pronounced like S-O. So, S-O, S-E-W and S-O-W, they are all pronounced in the same way. They are homophones. I'll repeat the sentence. Fatima could sew a frock for you. In this sentence, could is a modal and sew is the main verb. Now take the passive form. A frock could be sewn for you by Fatima. Also remember that some tenses cannot be changed into the passive form, so don't force them to bend according to your wishes. These tenses are present perfect continuous. Example: Junaid has been baking cakes since morning. Has been baking and since. This means this is present perfect continuous tense and you can't change this into passive voice. Can you try? It's a challenge. I hope you can't do it. Second, past perfect continuous. Example: the baby deer had been wandering all around since noon when his mother returned home. This too can't be changed into passive voice. And the last, future perfect continuous. Example: my friends will have been waiting for me for a couple of hours at the station before I arrive. In short, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous, the sentences which take since or for, they can't be changed into passive voice. As regards future continuous tense, its passive form is not usual and the native speakers prefer using its active form. For example, he will be flying tomorrow. He will be eating a mango at this time. He will be taking his breakfast in the morning tomorrow. These sentences can't be changed into passive voice. Before I wind up this program, I would like to revise a few concepts for you so that you face no problems in this area. Number 1, transitive verb. It is a verb which needs an object. For example, make, eat, drink. In Urdu too, you have got many such verbs. Intransitive verb, a verb that does not need an object. For example, sleeping and talking, sitting, running. You've got similar verbs in Urdu too. And the agent, the doer of an action in the passive construction or in active even. For example, if I say the house was constructed by these men, these men are the agent, and usually this thing begins with by. Direct object, usually it refers to the thing. For example, my father gave me a gift. A gift is direct object. Indirect object, it usually refers to a person. And now I'm going to give you a sentence. In this sentence, you've got both these objects. My brother gave me a nice car. In this sentence, a nice car is the direct object and me is the indirect object. Dear learners, that is all about active and passive. If you pay attention to these rules, if you practice them well, I believe you won't commit any mistake in examination in future. And that is all from my side today. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.